And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
We are exploited. We are downtrodden. We are denied not only civil rights, but even human rights. So the only way we're going to get some of this oppression and exploitation away from us or aside from us is come together against the common enemy.
I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value.
We get together, have a few laughs.
After months in Russian captivity, Brittney Griner was finally leaving.
What's your mood?
Happy.
Well,
do you know where I'm heading to? No. No? No. You fly back home? To the U.S. To the U.S.
Okay.
The flight took her via Abu Dhabi, where she was swapped on the tarmac with a notorious Russian arms dealer who'd spent 12 years in a US jail.
She's safe. She's on a plane. She's on her way home.
Much to the relief of loved ones.
I'm just standing here, overwhelmed with emotions, but the most important emotion that I have right now is just sincere gratitude.
While on Russian soil, a homecoming for the prisoner dubbed the Merchant of Death. Viktor Bout had been convicted of terrorism charges and conspiring to kill Americans. Securing the release of Brittney Griner was one of the major diplomatic goals of the Biden administration. It indicates the doors of dialogue with Russia are still open, despite frosty relations over the war in Ukraine. But from a penal colony in Russia, another captive American citizen expressed frustration. Former Marine Paul Whelan was convicted of involvement in an intelligence operation.
I have to say I am greatly disappointed that more has not been done to secure my release. I don't understand why I'm still sitting here.
Sadly, for totally illegitimate reasons, Russia is treating Paul's case differently than Brittney's.
An end to Brittney's torment, but not to high-stakes diplomatic tussles. Carrington Clark, ABC News, Washington.
Welcome to the Iowa Talk, guys. I'm your host, Theo.
And I'm your host, Teepee.
We got us a little bit of a different situation tonight. Teepee is working remotely.
I am. I'm on the move. Unfortunately, not in the shack with Theo this evening, but, you know.
I'm not in the shack either because it's like 11 degrees outside.
Yeah, the shack is not insulated.
No.
Yeah, but hey, we're still making this happen because that's what we do, man.
Absolutely. And I think we got a good one for you here. We're going to take a little bit, maybe of a different perspective.
Do you hate America?
No. You know, in fact, knowing many inmates, I figure out we're sharing way more common. Maybe America is very much similar. Look, it's the same size. It's the same kind of this. And when you talk to them, there is nothing there even to beef about. We are naturally, born not to be enemies. And whenever there's conflict, it's elites. Every, American I met in a prison who is from rural area was very easy to deal with. He has no problem with Russia, and he was curious about Russia, despite all propaganda. They're losing their Christian values. They're losing their families. They're losing literally their countries. It's not anymore the same country. We knew America, who used to be a model for the entire world and be an example, like they say, a shiny town on the, sparkling town on a hill. And this is, of course, pity. It was a strong country who was really a, industrial might, this one. And look, for 30, 40 years, deindustrialization, drug problem, crime waves. You can understand, and I feel more empathy to American after this experience than I would feel any hate.
What would you consider as the most important event of the years that you have spent in prison?
Which events? International?
Well, doesn't matter. Maybe international.
2014.
Oh, okay. Why?
Well, it's, I guess, would be in the history as a turning point. It's a turning point of Russia finally stand up on its knees. Proud, strong.
14 years ago, when if you would have known that it's going to happen with you, I mean, you're going to spend 14 years away from your family, from your motherland, would you do something differently in your life?
It's difficult to live on the callings of your heart. But if you listen in your heart, yes, sometimes you get into trouble, but you never betrayed yourself. And this inner peace gives you enough strength to go through everything. Why? Because you don't have a conflict inside of you. Doesn't matter what. You have peace and tranquility because you trust in your heart. You trust in callings of your blood. You're trusting, and you're never fighting who you are.
You just heard that clip from Viktor Bout, Russian arms dealer. Well, it's kind of interesting, Teepee, that his case was he stated that he's just a pilot, because I believe he was a Soviet Air Force officer, and he's just saying, hey, it was just, weapons were just my cargo. Like, it wasn't necessarily that he was intending to sell weapons, it's just that he wanted money. And that's what, right. And guess what? That's what a ton of people were doing at the time with Russian stuff. I'm not saying he's a good guy. I'm not defending him at all. But it's interesting how a-holes like that can sound reasonable as well.
Right. Well, I mean, hey, the guy saw an opportunity to make some cash, and he took it.
Right.
I mean, and honestly, if it wasn't Viktor Bout, it would have been some other fucking schmo.
Well,
right?
That's we're going to get into that, but yeah, here's my perspective is that, yeah, Viktor Bout is not the only one doing that at all. Taking him out of the picture he was in prison for 10 years, I believe, and in custody for like 14 years, didn't stop the industry at all. It didn't slow it down one bit.
Nope. Somebody else just took his place, and business as usual kept moving along.
Right, but we're just talking about an individual.
Yes.
Let's just get into it and dig a little deeper here, I guess.
Okay.
But I think we're going to start off with this Fox News article that we have pulled up, December 8th, 2022. Who is Viktor Bout, Russia's merchant of death, freed in prisoner swap for Brittney Griner? That's the headline.
Yep.
So it goes on to mention that the 2005 movie with Nicolas Cage, Lord of War, was actually loosely based on him, with Nicolas Cage playing him.
Yeah, which makes sense because him and his brother were Ukrainian citizens in that film. So.
Right. And one thing that movie, if you haven't seen it, brushes up on is that, if you're our age, Teepee, and my age, you'll remember the Berlin Wall falling and the fall of the Soviet Union. So in 1991, there were just the centralized government of the Soviet Union was just completely, it had collapsed. It wasn't there. And all of this, government infrastructure stopped working all of a sudden.
And all the stuff was just sitting around.
It was at the end of the Cold War, there's just weapons everywhere. I mean, submarines, attack helicopters.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, rocket launchers, freaking warehouses full of ammunition.
Absolutely.
And all types of weapons and all this crazy stuff that they were stocking to the Cold War.
Right. And let's face the facts here, too. It wasn't pretty. Right? So there's people that are going hungry.
Right.
So you got guys like Viktor Bout. Yes, okay. Yes, I fly. You don't tell me I don't care what he is. I fly there.
Fly anything. I can fly anything you want.
Yeah.
You need.
Yeah. So, all right. So Brittney Griner was exchanged for Viktor Bout because Brittney Griner got 10 years in Russian prison for having cannabis oil, like I want to say like vape, right?
Yeah, it was like a vape pen that she had, a cartridge or whatever they call it. And in Russia, you know, they don't play around when it comes to breaking their laws and you being a foreigner. I mean, we do the same thing here in the U.S. If you want to come to our country, but then you want to break our laws, guess what? You're going to get the full extent of the justice system right in your face.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely.
So
Insane there. And they're harsh on stuff like that.
Yeah, but I don't necessarily blame Russia for it because Brittney broke the fucking law, you know. And I'm not saying everybody should be, you know, 100% law-abiding citizens, but when you're dealing with a situation like that where it's a foreign country and you don't know the extent of the trouble that you can get in, maybe you shouldn't play games.
Absolutely.
Right?
And it just also shows how ignorant people are that, hey, there are a ton of other Americans you haven't heard about that are locked up for reasons like that. I mean, I've heard horror stories from literally expats from Europe and the United States that have been to Thailand, and they're like, they'll arrest you for anything. They'll throw you in jail for anything.
Oh, yeah.
And for a long, long time.
Right. Well, and even if you didn't do anything, I mean, we just had that Pat Miltich conversation where, you know, those cops were trying to take him into the police station down there in
Mexico, yes.
Yeah. And he talked about the sticky situation they were in there. Go listen to that episode.
Right, absolutely. Episode 31.
Yeah, so the laws are different when you go to a different country. I know
the laws for dealing drugs, smuggling drugs in China, like hardcore drugs like heroin, they kill you. You're done.
Yeah.
They kill you.
Yeah, it's not a joke. It's not.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, you know, we know that. I'm sure the majority of our listeners know that. But apparently Brittney Griner did not know that.
Well,
which I kind of find amazing. You think somebody would have informed them of, hey, this is the repercussions that could happen if you guys decide to try to bring this into their country, right?
Right.
So it's
a case of fuck around, find out.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. That's the best way to put it. And she found out. She found out that Russia doesn't fuck around.
Absolutely. and quite frankly, just on a personal note, I'm glad that Brittney Griner's home. I hate to hear about any American locked up abroad.
Right. I would agree with that. Yeah.
And frankly, yes. Okay. She broke Russian law. Russian law is Russian law. You got to deal with it. 10 years is pretty steep.
Yeah, but, especially in Russian prison.
Yeah, I've heard it.
They don't have the same nice accommodations like they do here in the U.S.
Yeah, it's horrible.
We'll get into that because Victor kind of he can attest to that.
Well, he apparently did claim that they were messing with him and like skipping meals on him and whatnot, but whatever.
Bout claims American authorities tested him psychologically, sometimes, he says, denying him food. Bout says he kept his spirits up and kept a picture of Russian President Putin in his cell.
So, anyway, Russian officials have long pushed for the release of this guy. He got 25 years.
Yes.
After, in 2011, he was convicted of conspiracy to kill Americans, conspiracy to deliver anti-aircraft missiles, and aiding a terrorist organization. Okay. That's not a very self-realistic... It's not self-realistic reporting, and I see this everywhere because, and we're going to get into this, but of people that do just that on a daily basis and skate free.
Yeah, and go home and eat with their families every day.
Absolutely, and have, badges and whatnot that they go to secure buildings with, and it's great. They were expensive suits and whatnot. In 2008,
Victor,
go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, Victor, he only served 10 years out of the 25-year sentence that he was convicted of in 2011, right? And that was it conspiracy to kill Americans, conspiracy to deliver anti-aircraft missiles, and aiding terrorist organizations? Yeah. That's what he was imprisoned in the U.S. for? Yep.
Right. But they nabbed him in Bangkok, actually. That's where the DEA got him.
luxury hotel.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks to informants who were posing as officials with the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, which had been classified by the U.S. Officials as a narco-terrorist group, right?
Yes.
Yeah. It says here, prosecutors said that Bout was prepared to provide the group, the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, which was a sting operation, with $20 million worth of, quote, a breathtaking arsenal of weapons, including hundreds of surface-to-air missiles, machine guns, and sniper rifles, and 10 million rounds of ammunition and 5 tons of plastic explosives.
So that's a nice little package there.
That's some pretty heavy-duty stuff.
Yeah. Could do a lot of damage, and the allegations were that it was going to be used to shoot down American aircraft and whatnot.
Yeah, which chances of that happening were probably slim to fucking none.
Yeah, slim to none, and also, these narcos, they've had a pretty long relationship with the United States government anyway, right?
Right.
One way or another. In fact, what's really interesting about this to me is that if you look at Iran-Contra, this is exactly what a uniformed Marine officer was doing.
Yes. But
Oliver North.
He had the backing and sanctions of the U.S. government, so he was completely kosher, according to our officials.
Absolutely. And he pretty much, he went to Congress, and he snubbed him on a bunch of stuff after he got subpoenaed. I'm not going to tell you, basically, is what he said, but, in a lot more elegant fashion. So I want to change gears here to the... we have a Time article here called The Dark Truth about Viktor Bout. This was published December 9th, 2022 by Matt Potter. It's surprising that I enjoyed this article from Time so much. But it's pretty reasonable, in my opinion, as far as how Time has been lately and making, Zelensky the man of the year and whatnot. Because... that's just some of the dumbest shit I've ever seen. But
like that dumbass time they put Obama as the fucking man of the year, and after he got done drone bombing a bunch of children.
Right, sure, yeah. Hitler and I want to say Himmler were also Time Man of the Year.
Yes,
well.
they were. Yeah.
So this guy was sending weapons to Afghanistan, East Africa, Somalia, South America. This is hilarious. Quote, he is the Stones' sympathy for the devil made flesh. A fitting supervillain for a new Cold War.
Sympathy for the devil.
Yeah, that's pretty cheap, in my opinion. Some pretty dramatic bullshit there.
Yeah.
So this... go ahead, sorry.
No, I'm just going to say I really don't know if I could compare him to Sympathy of the Devil.
The shitty Rolling Stones song?
Yeah. I don't know, man. I just don't see that, because I'd have to say the U.S. government would be more fitting to that song.
We're gonna get there. We're gonna get there.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
So in the what do we got here? Well, a couple paragraphs down. I have some knowledge of Bout. I was one of a small army of monitors, sleuths, and aviation geeks who tracked him and the tidal wave of Russian arms consignments that spread across the world with ex-Soviet military aircrews in the years following the USSR's collapse. These adventures became Outlaws, Inc., the definitive book on the tidal wave of stockpiled Kalashnikovs that Bout rode through wars, Somalia and Afghanistan, massacres in the Congo and Liberia, wealth and fame. I was part of a team that made 2014's BBC commissioned Sundance Festival prize-winning documentary on Bout's own rise and fall, The Notorious Mr. Bout. So he's moving weapons all sorts of places and all over the place, but he does end up sort of showing the real side of the industry. If you go down further, a few paragraphs down, He says, everything quickly decays into shades of gray. Western governments are not averse to channeling arms under the radar when we feel it's the right to do so. From the Afghan Mujahideen to today's Ukrainian forces, we use subcontractors in the cargo trade.
Yes.
And you have heard us talk about the Afghan Mujahideen before, all right, and how they're doing the same BS in the Ukraine. Arming. And
well, also, let's not forget what just happened in Syria not too long ago when the Obama administration was arming all types of different rebels.
Really bad ones. Really bad people.
Yeah, bad people, but they were, once again, our government's intelligence or lack of intelligence, their idea of the enemy of my enemy is my friend, once again, did not work out too well for us. Shocker, I know.
Right. Well, it didn't work out for other people more, and that's the really sad part.
Right.
You know what I mean? Just
it didn't benefit the American people or people of the world at all.
Or Afghanistan or
Syria
fucking Iraq. You just go and right on down that list and name them all.
Right.
So one thing that I wanted to bring up along those lines was, as well, in addition to all of this, was... So yeah, that was just a couple named there. We armed and funded. I don't know how many times we have to say all this shit. We armed and funded Saddam Hussein, the Palestine Liberation Organization headed by Yasser Arafat. Armed, funded, all over the place. Well, let's not forget about Fast and Furious as well, right?
Right, yes.
So the DEA are the ones that nabbed Bout, right?
Yep.
Well,
in Bangkok.
Say again?
In Bangkok, Thailand.
Right. So the DEA's brother, whatever you want to call him, big brother, little brother, I don't know who's bigger. Probably the little brother. The ATF gave weapons to people that shouldn't have had them in the first place, it sounds like, and allowed them to go over to Mexico and sell them.
Yeah. To known violent cartel fucking members.
Yes.
Who took some of those weapons and slaughtered a Sweet 16 birthday party of one of their political adversaries.
Border Patrol agents as well. In fact, families of Border Patrol agents have sued the United States government because of the wrongful deaths of their family members at the hands of people who were armed by the United States government.
Yes. Yep. And then don't forget, the Obama administration tried to cover it all up. Right?
Absolutely. Holder got in trouble for that.
Yeah, they tried to put that shit underneath the rug, and then it came out, and then Eric Holder was like, oh, God, oh, no.
Yes, Judicial Watch, I think, sued for that. And then it showed that Holder had like direct involvement with the officials through the Department of Justice.
Yes.
And the ATF and how to like deal with Congress when they got subpoenaed to go there. So he was like coaching these guys up or something like this, you know?
Yeah, something weird was going on there.
So this is, I'm sure Viktor Bout is not a nice guy. All right?
No.
But he's not any worse than people that don't go to jail all the time for doing the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they've got federal government badges. I haven't heard anybody actually like come out and say in the corporate media at least that this is a good deal. This is a good trade. We need that WNBA player back. And then we can give these guys their former Soviet Air Force officer with ties to Russian intelligence that was flying airplanes all over the world, or weapons all over the world in airplanes. Yeah, right. I haven't heard anybody on however you want to say it, you know, whatever side of the aisle, yada, yada, yada. It's all bullshit anyway, but nobody said this is a square deal.
Not, at least not in the mainstream that I've heard.
No.
There's a bunch of alternative media sources like ourselves that have been just, you know, basically screaming the same thing. Hey, this wasn't really a fair deal for the whole world here, fellas.
Or a self-realistic deal from the U.S. government going after this guy. Because they're the worst. Because they're the worst offenders. And the arms trade is actually, it's people that, wear nice suits. They drive a sedan and they go to work every day and fill up crates full of weapons and ship them around the world, man.
To wherever it's just a supply and demand.
That's all it is.
Right. Supply and demand.
Not illegal.
And one of those demands that was asked for was from the United States government. I mean, this has happened countless times throughout wars, right? Subcontracting, all this stuff. And it even says here, going back to this Time article that you were reading, it said that this journalist flew to Afghanistan with one of Viktor Bout's planes in 2003.
Yeah, I remember seeing that.
He was one of the few outfits that agreed to fly Aden despite Taliban rocket fire, poor runways, and inadequate insurance. So
he's Russian cowboy, Yeah. He fly in. There's not even any pavement. There's not even pavement on the runway. He fly. He land on the rocks and gravel.
Is that you, John Wayne? Is it me?
I love it, John Wayne.
Yeah. And I would imagine there was extra pay in it for, Taliban rocket fire when you're trying to land in the runway. And, I mean, so this is what gets me here, is the U.S. had known that this guy was a weapons trader, a smuggler, right? Right. He was gun running. And they utilized his business back in the beginning of the freaking Afghanistan invasion.
There you go.
Is that not a conflict of interest here?
I mean, yes.
So yeah. I'm just it's hey, we're going to use you until we can throw you in prison.
And
that's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, it worked. And once again, it has been brought up by multiple sources that this guy has ties to Russian intelligence, and they're anxious to get him back. Like one of Putin's right-hand man was a huge advocate of getting this guy back. So, where was I going with that? He's valuable, and it seems like there's probably there were actually something else going on. Was the reason that they locked him up? Maybe maybe they knew it. So they're like, hey, we're just going to lock this Russian guy up and use it as a bargaining chip.
Right. Instead of having you killed, we're just gonna detain you for a while.
Yeah.
Or something. I don't know.
And then get a tatted up, weed oil smoking WNBA player back for you.
Right. Yeah, because she's such a national treasure that we just have to have her back.
Well, she's essential to national security.
Oh, is she?
Of course.
Yeah.
She's an LGBTQ plus WNBA player.
Right. She's a trailblazer. She's making waves in the right way. We need to have her back because it's going to change the world in a better light somehow. Right.
Of course. It's also worth mentioning that Viktor joined, according to the New York Post, December 12th, 2022, Viktor Bout joins ultra-nationalist party, reveals he kept Putin's photo in prison. Oh my God, what an evil bastard.
Right.
So anytime, and I will say that both sides, if you will, we're not really a both sides show, right, Teepee? We know that they're all one side.
Yeah, they're in cahoots with each other.
Yeah, so New York Post, Rupert Murdoch, right, conservative, right wing, and then a bunch of other outlets. We're talking about how yes, he joined an ultra nationalist party. Okay, so they all agree on this. Anytime a group that people or individuals or groups of individuals align in ways that are not destructive of their economy, country, families, yada, 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 and they are not signed off by these globalists in Western academia, media, institutions, government, corporations, you name it, they always get labeled some sort of far-right, ultra-nationalist, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
If they aren't into self-immolation and they actually want to make their country stronger, I'm not saying the means of the ends justify the means sometimes, and how that happens. But yeah, they get an instant label. But this guy, again, that just goes to show how this guy is already being honored, with premier positions in political parties in Russia and whatnot. They wanted him back. He got a hero's welcome.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But one of the striking things here in this article that they admit to, in this Time article, is that it says the biggest shipments were not carried by Hellraiser Bush pilots flying Soviet wing jalopies like Bout any more than they are smuggled inside cakes. They are shipped in bulk through container ports and paperwork via networks of shell companies and subcontractors. The parties are respectable and dull. The paperwork is often maddeningly circular, and it is not a black market at all. It is, in a phrase used by trafficking monitors, the gray market. Foggy and hard to make out. Cloaked in contractual small print logistics and broken hyperlinks. So, who are the real smugglers here? Like we kind of talked about in the beginning. Like, if Viktor Bout he didn't have any shipping containers or shipping ships, right, where he could haul 800 freaking shipping containers across the ocean.
Right.
He never did that. No. Who did do that, though?
Well, it's governments.
Yes.
Governments and corporations, as always.
Right. So, to me, that's just crazy. And it even said here also that the federal judge who sentenced Bout to 25 years came out after her retirement to state she thought the sentence was too harsh.
That's interesting.
That's what I thought, yeah. But anyways, I found that extremely interesting that they even fucking made a whole paragraph about it.
Yeah. Again, all of the examples of information these days like this, I mean, it's incredibly, it shows just an incredible lack of self-awareness on the part of Western media and Western governments.
Right.
They're so self-aware. And then really, you boil it down even further. Who is it? It's the U.S., right?
Yeah.
They're doing whatever the hell they want because, we have provided military defense for Germany and Western Europe for decades through NATO, and they haven't had to worry about it. So, United States just took advantage of the situation and did whatever the hell it wanted in a lot of cases.
And still continues to do that.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. So, yeah, it's pretty wild. It says also, it continues here. It says the fact is that Viktor Bout was a businessman. He was not a good businessman. He financed himself too much. The wheeler dealer and his posing as a big shot was what enabled the sting operation that captured him. Often he was not a good man either. He fell in love with the rewards of his trade, made selfish decisions, and flooded places with ease of access to light weapons that, when they should have had none, and his cargo, which he just called his cargo, his products, certainly killed a great many people.
So it's like we said a couple episodes ago, and when I believe that Pat Miletich said it as well when we interviewed him, is that we didn't. Nature abhors a vacuum, right?
Yeah.
Meaning that there shouldn't be a vacuum. So if there is, there's something causing that. But
right.
So where there is a void, it's going to get filled. All right. They wanted weapons, but you and Pat brought up that it didn't even take guns. Well, Pat brought it up. It didn't even take guns. They just dropped off machetes, and it took no time, a matter of weeks, for them to hack up a million people.
Yeah, weeks.
Yes. So, Viktor Bout was just a drop in the pond. I would imagine that he was valuable for other reasons and intelligence reasons or something like that. There's, the New York Post article talks about how he has ties to the Russian intelligence community. So, sure, he's got all sorts of high contacts over there.
And like you said, though, I mean, he really was just a fucking another turd in the punch bowl floating around.
Yes.
I mean, after he was detained, guess what? Those operations still continued under somebody else.
The volume didn't stop at all.
Yeah,
there was no decrease in volume after Viktor Bout got.
There was still
arrested.
demand. Somebody filled that supply.
There you go.
Right?
Yes.
So he might have been out of action, sitting in prison over in Illinois somewhere, but his operation still continued, whether he was making money on it or not. You don't know?
Absolutely. Somebody, those assets weren't just sitting there. So.
Right. Yep.
Well, this seems like a really great place to cut it off after the call in.
Viktor Bout, not the greatest guy in the world. Definitely, probably not the smartest idea in the U.S. Intelligence community to make that swap.
Well, it was the White House. Yeah,
the White House.
It was just pure political bullshit, of course.
And that's exactly what it looked like.
Yeah.
And that's what it looked like, too.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's going to do... I don't know. Maybe Viktor Bout will leave his Merchant of Death days behind him and move on to greener, greater pastures.
That to me sounds like a nickname just to sell headlines. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Because he isn't a crap of a merchant of death compared to other folks that we named, organizations really that we named.
That's cool.
So,
but
yeah, that's just selling newspapers. That's just tits above the fold, is all that is.
Well, then I guess this kind of wraps up our whole show to this evening.
Yeah, thanks for listening. Let us know what you think about the format. We got the 9 to 5s. So Teepee is traveling for his job, and this is the only way we can get it in this week. But hey,
we're making it happen.
Is this the last one of the year?
This is. And
hey, this is the last release of the year as well. So
that's going to drop after Christmas too. So Merry Christmas to everybody. We hope you guys had a fucking awesome Christmas.
Yeah, absolutely.
And have a Happy New Year as well.
Happy New Year. Spend time with your families.
Yep. Enjoy yourselves. Get a little rest and relaxation in. And we won't see you guys. We'll talk to you guys next year.
There we go.
Yeah.
Stay safe traveling out there, TP.
Hey man, I appreciate it. You stay safe back at the old shindig.
Oh yeah. Well, hey, I'm safe west of the Mississippi where I belong. You stay safe out there. All right, out east, all right?
I appreciate it. All right, this is Iowa Talk Guys signing off.
We are out.